Tell us about McEnroe.
He pointed onto my chest and he said, "You think you're goddamn good enough to play doubles with me?"
Wow.
Yes. He said, "You better hold your end up on the court."
South Australian-born tennis star Mark Woodforde is one of the sport's all-time greats. Alongside doubles partner Todd Woodbridge, he formed one of the most enduring and iconic partnerships in tennis history. Beyond that, Mark was also a world-class singles player who reached the top 20 and had many wins over legends such as John McEnroe and Lendl. Pecker, as he's affectionately known, won 17 Grand Slams in doubles and mixed, including a record 6 Wimbledons alongside Todd. He also collected 67 doubles titles, 4 singles and a Davis Cup championship. In this chat, Mark courageously opens up about his now fractured relationship with Todd Woodbridge, but also provides a fascinating insight into his on-court partnerships with John McEnroe and Martina Navratilova. Rightio, let's go. Welcome along to the Soda Room, a place where we get to know the real stories behind some of the biggest names in the game.
It was like we had won the grand final.
I just got some new boots. It was something special for me.
Did you understand the significance of that moment?
Oh, yeah. Nothing compared.
That's what I thought I had to do as a leader.
You got the same undies on.
I've got exactly the same ones on.
Mark Woodforde, great to have you back here in Adelaide. Mate, welcome along.
Thank you. I just wish I could get back to Adelaide a lot more than what I do. And it never seemed to be long enough. I never end up, seeing the people that you anticipate seeing when you're planning the trip back. But gee, it sure is always great to be home.
Now, as we record this, we're only an hour or two away from the men's final of the Adelaide International.
Yeah.
I just need to wind the clock back a little bit, right? I don't want to make you feel too old, but you won this tournament 35 years ago. And you've also won it 34 years ago. How scary does that feel?
Alrighty, so...
That's it?
That's
Isn't it amazing? Because it was 88 and 89?
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel, when you say 35 years, it's actually scary.
It is.
Yeah.
It actually does, in a way, make me edgy that I was playing that long ago.
The first one in 88 was Wally Masur, wasn't it? Pretty comfortably?
The first year coming up against Wally was someone, a little older than me, and I had a tremendous amount of respect for him. It was just the way, our culture was set up. I mean, you respect the generation, well, not that Wally's a generation before me, he'll kill me if I ever imply that, but he was a few years older, had established himself, and it was a prized scalp for me. I think he had won the previous year, actually. He was the defending champion. So I came out and won. And, it's just these small steps that you take in the early part of your journey because you do enter the professional playing field with doubts. There was no guarantees. I wasn't blessed with natural talent. I had to work at my craft, but I believed in myself. And the bonus of playing in a final here at Memorial Drive, where I had played so many matches in my mind, physically, but also mentally. I'd always envisioned, playing big matches out there, and I got a chance to do it. So, to win it was... I mean, look, that would probably rate up there with, the some of the big victories at Wimbledon, the Grand Slam victories. To do it at home, it was just fantastic.
We back it up the year later as well. So you've got 3 singles titles before all this double success. I think, knowing what you're like, I know you were always going to be a tennis player. That meant singles, that meant doubles, that meant mixed at Grand Slams. But I think your doubles career is so good, it's probably overshadowed what's a bloody good singles career too. You beat Lendl in a final too, didn't you? And it was a bit of a walkover. Yeah, I just bullied him, bruised him, physically outdid him within 6 games, and he retired. He said, "It's too much, I can't handle you." So 4 titles as singles, and a lot of those titles obviously before all this double success. But it's interesting, when I go back over all of your results you weren't a doubles specialist. You were just a bloody outstanding doubles player and a fantastic singles player.
And that's why I love it. I said that I do this because you haven't called me a double specialist.
No, because you're not.
Yeah, look, Todd and I probably, would get really uncomfortable. Yeah. We'd do these interviews, and the doubles success overshadowed the singles period.
Let's look at it as doubles. How does it sit with you with that whole double specialist, Mark Woodforde?
Uncomfortably, because the sport has now got to the stage where there is the two divisions, singles and doubles, and Todd and I were coming up in a period of time where it was still, you played tennis, you entered the tournament, you played singles, number one priority, doubles. Yep. If you had the opportunity to play at the Grand Slams, enter into the mixed. Yeah. So we saw ourselves as players. As the generations before us, everyone played the two disciplines and potentially the three. And it was through, I guess, our period of playing together that the evolution of doubles only, double specialists. And that's where the victories, and you're there at the end of the week. We weren't necessarily there all the time in singles, even though we had, I'm thrilled with my singles career, and I know Todd is as well. Reaching top 20 is, it's a great feat. But then we were tagged as being double specialists, and we'd be like, hang on, we're if we just played doubles, week in, week out without the singles, we for sure would have had, potentially double the amount of slams. Throw in another 25, we probably would have broken the century mark as far as tournament victories. Yes. But we were playing singles at the same time. The double specialists today are just simply playing doubles, and we just didn't. That wasn't in our vocabulary. So it was through that transition, where the game was really changing, and they separated the doubles finals at the year end, and we were a part of that for a few years. It didn't sit comfortably with us, but we didn't have too much of a voice at the time to say, you should, to the ATP, you should be able to hold both competitions together. But look, it is what it is. To be recognised, to be known as one of the great doubles teams is, it's fantastic, but it's still, when it's like, the double specialist.
Yes.
Like, no.
Well, I've known you long enough now, and I would never introduce you as a double specialist. I know, but because you think about, let's just say you never played doubles, you'd be still a great singles player, one of South Australia's greatest and an Australian great. So it's just you throw on top 17 Grand Slam titles when you throw in your mixed, and then you're suddenly talking about astounding sort of results.
Well, and Davis Cup. I mean, to be able to play my first ever Davis Cup tie was alongside Darren Cahill. Both of us, we were in the team, and I think it was in '88, and we were playing against France, and we were close to being selected during that year anyway, but to get the call up by Neil Fraser, but it was singles, and so my first few experiences of playing Davis Cup was singles. So it's funny that the doubles really helped me, I think, early on when I started to travel, after finishing high school and went overseas to Europe. I wasn't having a lot of wins on the singles court, but that's where the beauty of the doubles. I could still get out onto the court and be competitive.
Yes.
I was, I had a buddy from Adelaide that I was playing with, and, we built our confidence up by actually doing okay in the doubles, even in the early years. But then, the singles started to take over. Once I started to, I guess, probably understand who I was, my game, my strengths, my weaknesses, how I can adapt to different surfaces and different opponents, I started to, I guess, just mature, and the success started to come in singles. It did get to a stage then that, the doubles was starting to, gather momentum, and it's like kind of overshadowed the singles. But right till the end of my career.
You played singles all the way through, didn't you, the last few months?
Yeah, the last few months. And it was the worst time having to play doubles only.
Really?
once I got to the stage of, okay, I'm going to retire. I wanted to, start a family with Erin. We got married 1 year before I retired, but I had, spoken to her about, wanting to start a family. She had also a few years older than me, so she felt that, time was running a little
bit of cougar work.
Yeah, she was like, it's, after like 6 years of dating. So I just thought, look, I can't juggle traveling with my wife and potentially having a baby and trying to be number one in the world in a number one team and try to focus on my singles as well. I felt like I was going to more or less cheat on one of them, and that cheating is not part of my vocabulary either. So, just made that decision of I felt like it was time. I didn't think that I could improve any at 35 years of age. I couldn't, Todd and I took pride in ourselves individually and as a doubles team. We tried to improve our level every year rather than just remain happy, content if you're number one. But, everyone catches up to you.
So it was always to be a better number one.
Totally.
Yeah, right.
And we learned that probably, very early on, maybe the first year that we actually got to the number one position.
So what's it, 92-ish, around there?
So we had won the World Doubles Finals in Joburg, and that victory had ascended us to number one. And probably a few months later into the following season is where, you can't win every week. But we recognised that there was a huge target on our back because when you're the number one, people are grading their performance on coming up against you. And so it was something we had to adjust to, but our coach said, the goal is not to stay at number one and be happy. It is to think that you're never number one and, you keep working on your game. And that was just so valuable for us. And so every year it was like we just sat down and would analyse a part of our game. You can't work on everything, but we would maybe just pull a shot or a play out and just spend time trying to work on that. But it was always singles first. There were very few occasions did we think, okay, we've got to focus on our doubles. It was always to be better singles players. If we were going to improve in that part of the sport, it was going to flood into the doubles game. And
it's interesting. I watched the first episode of the new Netflix series Breakpoint this morning, which obviously has a lot of Nick Kyrgios and a bit of Thanasi Kokkinakis, guys you know well. And it was interesting because they were talking about pre that Australian Open final that they won last year. And Thanasi said, we're not double specialists. We're singles players playing doubles. And it was interesting because when I was watching it this morning, I knew we were going to chat today. I thought of you because I remember your philosophy always was we were singles players that played doubles. We weren't doubles specialists. And it's funny how it's taken those guys to almost re-energise the wider interest in doubles because they're bringing that life to it rather than your hardcore double specialist.
We did present the trophies to Nick and Thanasi. And actually at the time, I said as I passed on, knowing Thanasi extremely well and Nick, but I said, this should show you guys you need to be playing doubles more. And I think one of them, I can't remember exactly who, said, but we're not double specialists. And I said, you don't need to play every week. That's how good I think the 2Ks can actually be. They don't need to play that often. They are, such a volcanic doubles that really does, when they erupt, meaning that they play, not erupt with emotion, but their level, they just, it's sky high. They can beat some of the great doubles teams.
You obviously watching that final, you would have seen that run and they knocked off the Croatian number ones. There was all the controversy, but the electricity around the events and you being there, as a man that spent so much time having double success, you must have felt a real buzz. Were you just loving what they were bringing to the sport?
Well, I think doubles is unfortunately in a rut right now, has been for a while. The sport of singles is travelling along nicely. We're coming through one of the greatest parts
Amazing.
in history, periods in history with Nadal and Roger and Novak and some of the other supporting players. The doubles is really the ugly sister of singles right now. I mean, Todd and I think set that the standard a little higher. I mean, the Woodies is a catchy name. I think we played a brand that people wanted to come and watch. They enjoyed watching us. And then we had those a number of records. The Bryans come along. They break the records. They set and they're double specialists. But they break all these our records. But it brings attention to the doubles game. Since they've retired, it's like, there's just no doubles team that has set the world alight. They're not breaking records. They're changing partners frequently. And I think doubles is really struggling, which is why I think Todd and I took great joy in watching Nick and Tanasi last year go through the Australian Open, because they brought attention to a part of our sport that we're passionate about, but they lifted the standard. They showed that you can play singles and doubles at a Grand Slam event. This, ridiculous notion that it is too difficult to play. I mean, they just blew it out the water right then and there. And I think to have another Australian pair finally come around was, look, in a selfish way, you want to hold on to your records, but you're always setting the standard, the bar for someone else to break. Before the Woodies, it was the Supermax. We wanted to emulate them. We wanted to emulate Nuke and Roche. Rosewall and Stolly were a team. So we wanted to, be one of them. And so we know that hopefully the people want to be out there like the Woodies, and Tanasi and Nick, stepped up there.
Would you love to see them be, a hardcore combo that still plays really regularly?
I would. And by the way, I only played with Todd because...
The Woodies?
Yeah. It was nothing else.
It must have been very hard to wait to find someone whose name could sort of fit your name.
I was like waiting for a whole
McEnroe.
It was. I think that came about because some of and when they used to place the draws up for the public and in the locker rooms and that, I think the tour manager just got a little tired of putting Woodbridge and Woodforde. It's just too long. So it's just simply shorten it up as you do, and just the Woodies. And it's kind of, went with that. But I do, for Nick and Tanasi, they really could be the best team out there right now.
Even if they don't have that full concentration, I imagine they're not sitting there working angles and ideas and techniques as a doubles. They're playing singles together.
I feel like, I don't want to say I know it, but I feel it because Todd and I think people would be amazed that we didn't go out and occasionally at Davis Cup, we practiced our doubles craft. When we knew that Rafter or Philippoussis or when Leighton came around and the co-stars were Frommie and Stoltz, if we knew that they were going to, ahead of time, be ready for singles, we then would focus on our doubles. But there were a lot of times Todd and I would arrive at a Davis Cup tie as viable candidates for a single spot, even with Pat and Mark and Leighton and the others there. We felt that we could actually play singles and doubles at a Davis Cup. And we did. I did a number of times. Todd, not as many, but he did have a crack at it. So we were always practicing our singles. So it was only a few times that we practiced our doubles craft. And that's where I think for Nick and Tanasi, if they've got this idea that they have to get out and practice angles and reflexes, and then they've got to play sets against the other double specialists.
You don't need to.
They don't need to.
That's interesting. I find that fascinating because I think that's so essentially for all the great success that you and Todd had, and I think what you won 67 doubles titles, 61 of them were alongside Todd, which is pretty remarkable. Essentially, though, there was never any genuine dedicated doubles practice. You'd go to a tournament, you'd both be playing singles, and then you'd practice as singles players and come together just during the doubles matches?
At the back end of the tournament, if we were bundled out in the singles, we're still alive in the doubles.
Yeah.
I mean, by then there's a fatigue build up as well. So you're not on the practice court a whole lot. We would go and warm up for our doubles. Yep. And, we might hit, you're still hitting serves, you're practicing your volleys, you're practicing your returns. We just spent a few extra minutes on angles and maybe a few more doubles, reflex volleys for the doubles. And that was it.
Is that one of the reasons maybe why you had so much success, do you reckon? Because you weren't...
Yeah, it's actually great angle, because we didn't get... There was... the care factor was there in most tournaments. I'd love to say nearly every tournament, but obviously there were some tournaments that you just, maybe in looking back, you think, oh, maybe we shouldn't have played that one. But we were ready. We tried to get ourselves ready for each tournament. I think it was with the value, the care of being professional. I think we were just really straightforward, honest, kind of in a vanilla way. We didn't go crazy. We kept pushing ourselves to, lift that standard that we expected of ourselves. I trusted Todd that time away, he would be ready when he came back to play, that he was ready to play, that he had taken care of himself. Right. He was ready. I'm sure he had trust in me that I wasn't wasting time away and that I wanted to, felt like I could improve. We both, I think, inevitably had those same goals on the singles court and the belief in each other that we could, create a bit of history on the doubles court.
A little bit. Woody, I've got to ask you, I know it's so ridiculous to even think this would be the case, but because you guys were so successful, it was Woodies,
yeah.
I always pictured like you lived in houses next door to each other and you picked each other up in the car and you drove to training, you know what I mean? And you celebrated your holidays together with your wives.
Like brothers. So still, people thought we were brothers because of the Woodies.
Yeah, but not even that in a brother thing, but I just thought it was almost because there was so much success that you were almost like little twins and you lived your lives together.
Success would not have been there had that been the case. You can't live in each other's pockets, when you're away from competition. And, when we started playing together, I already had a base in Europe and I had a place in the US. Yep. Todd started to have that success as well and recognized that he needed to have a base outside of Australia because it's just too arduous to come back and forth. He looked at wanting to purchase a place in California, and it was our coach that said, I think you should probably, not specifically be in the desert where Mark is. And
so you California way, Indian Wells.
Yeah, Indian Wells in the California desert.
Your coach saying actually don't get too close.
It was like, are there other areas that interest you? And I think over generations, some Australians concentrated in Florida. Some had concentrated in Newport Beach, California. I ended up in the desert because of the Indian Wells tennis tournament and because Rod Laver lived in the area. So I thought, well, if Rocket has, been here and Martina Navratilova had worked out of there, Chris Evert, Pete Sampras, Michael Chang, Jim Courier, I thought, well, there's got to be something in the water here and I'm going to taste it. So that's why I was there. But in the end, I think Todd, recognized that it was probably beneficial for him to be not necessarily on the other side of the US, but just not so that we're not together, because you need time apart. With the intensity that is, created when you're in competitive mode. We were spending a week together. This is not where we're spending a few days together and we're losing and we're off to the next tournament. We were there for the whole week. A lot of times.
Absolutely. Or the 2 weeks.
Or the 2 weeks at the slams. And so you do spend a bit of time together. So when those weeks came when we were off, it was almost like, okay, later, and that was it.
Can I ask, if you don't mind, just with Todd, and I know a couple of years ago that you asked about how you and he are, and I think because he's playing with Jonas Bjorkman on the Legends Tour, that you felt a little bit, I suppose, slighted because you've had. Is that fair?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I retired, as you mentioned earlier in the chat. I retired. I'm 5 years older, so I retired earlier than Todd. He played for another 5 years. Whoever he was going to, if he picked someone that could play doubles at a reasonable level, he was going to have success. Todd is one of the all-time great players. Full stop. So it's not like I upset about the success he endured afterwards, but I think when we started playing Legends, that was fun, and that just led to, I guess, there's a lack of communication. And it's odd because communication was something that we were very good at with each other through our playing time, and it probably, the lack of communication didn't help us, through this period. So I don't. I wish it was very, very different. We don't have a lot to talk about these days.
Really?
His work with Channel 9 and one of the media, front media people for Tennis Australia, I think goes against some of the work that I do with the ITF and being the chairman of the Davis Cup. And Todd feels very strongly the basis of how Davis Cup has changed. There's a lot of...
The format is drastically different to what you guys experienced when...
Yes, exactly. And
essentially the Australians, Tennis Australia, aren't overly excited by the direction Davis Cup's taken. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, Davis Cup changed, and it wasn't because of how badly Tennis Australia ran Davis Cup ties when we played at home. If there were other nations around the world that ran it as well as what we did, Davis Cup would still be enjoying, right behind the level of the Grand Slams, the priority. But there are so many other countries that didn't like the format. There were a number of players that didn't want the format. They desired change. And I guess, we're passionate here in Australia about our teams, our national teams, and we support them consistently. Tennis is one of our premier sports in this country, and but there are other nations that wanted the change to come about, and so it went, and that's probably contributed to that somehow I've instigated a change. It's not the case. It's probably led to, some, where Todd and I are just a bit fractured at the moment.
Can I ask Woody, for having so much success with Todd and so much time, and he's a significant part of your life, how does that sit with you now?
Oh, it cuts me.
Fractured, yeah.
Absolutely cuts me. And I wish it was. I wish we could be. I would love to be able to play, some more Legends events together. I don't anticipate playing, for too much longer anyway. But it's just at a position that I don't think. I'm assuming that Todd wouldn't have desired it, but it is where it is right now, and it's just uncomfortable.
Does it need one of you? I'm not trying to have therapy here, mate, but I just think, for guys that have achieved so much together, it feels a shame that you two aren't good mates that can still have a chat. Would you like to repair that one day?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I still come back to Australia, and I feel like it's, because I've fell in love with someone an American woman, that I'm living outside of Australia as well. That's kind of contributed. I still come back to Australia, each year. The Davis Cup is still running, and Australia have done, started to do well. They did well last year in the competition, and I'm still the same person. I'd like to believe I'm still the same person, and it's just it's for someone that you could rely upon for as many years and have great fun and success and joy with, to be at the stage now is Yeah, it's really it's hurtful. Tennis is running well here in Australia, and it would be great to see another doubles team like the 2Ks, come around and if they need any help, I'm sure Todd would be willing to give them some advice, like I was try to when I see the fellas on the road as well.
Just on that with you and Todd, I hope if it's something you guys one day want to get the chance, you can sit down and have a beer and look at all your trophies together and polish them and high five each other. I hope that you guys do get that opportunity to do that at some stage.
Well, we were one heck of a team on the tennis court. I think we'd be a pretty decent team, but behind the microphone or trying to help some youngsters coming up as well. So we'll see what happens.
Your first Grand Slam doubles title you win was alongside John McEnroe, and you talked about singles players being great doubles players. Well, there's a textbook example.
Right.
Tell us about McEnroe. Tell us how it comes about to meet him, because we've had him here in Adelaide many years for the World Tennis Challenge. He's an interesting man, isn't he? He's abrasive, and I think he likes people to feel intimidated by him. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, exactly. You've put that into perspective. And I think if I go back to the times when we were doing the World Tennis Challenge here, and you were helping us MC, and I was involved in the running of the event. And remember when we had McEnroe here, and he played on that court where the stands were very close, and he'd only just arrived. He was jet lagged to the hilt. He'd lost his singles, and even going out to speak to him, I think you got a big spray by
what
him.
Actually happened? No, it was a match against Rafter, because I reckon he'd never had the opportunity to really take on Rafter on the tour.
Yeah.
And given the exhibition nature of this, there's people drinking wine next to the court, they're yelling stuff out, and most of the guys are playing along, they're hitting balls into the crowd and so forth. But this intensity and ferocity around McEnroe was fascinating to watch, wasn't it?
It was.
And I think the night you're talking about, he lost to Rafter. And essentially, I think tradition is it in tennis, if you've lost the match, you walk off, say thank you, and then you give the winner the chance to be interviewed. But because it was an exhibition, it was John McEnroe being back here for the first time in so many years. I went up and said, John, do you mind having a chat? And he goes, well, I lost. No, he's about to walk off. I'm like, well, people have paid money essentially to come and watch you, John.
Right.
And he didn't want to be there. To his credit, he waited and did the interview. But while we were waiting for the commentators, and I've got a feeling it was actually Todd Woodbridge up top throwing down to us as a pure coincidence, I could hear them in my ear chatting away, and John's looking, I could see the steam coming out of the ears, and it's like, get me out of here, mate, because I'm not going to do this interview unless... And as they throw down, I could see he's about to have a go, and he goes, oh man, it's great to be here, and was terrific.
Yeah.
But then soon as the interview finished, he was off because he lost, and he was angry, even though it was an exhibition.
Yeah. And I think even after the singles, you weren't game enough to go back out to speak to him again after the doubles.
I said to you.
And you came to me and said, yeah, I'm going. And I think Ali, Rash and Darren, and we were all standing there, and they were like, Pecker, he's your doubles partner. Yes. You go and talk to him. So I walked out, and he abused me badly. I just stood there and what operation are you guys running here? And I said, look, it's an exhibition, it's a special event, but these fans, they love you coming here. Can you please do the interview? Off he went at me again.
Yeah.
But the camera was set up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was you that was doing it.
We went and did it.
And then as soon as that light went on, so he switched on, couldn't have been probably nicer.
Brilliant.
And then as soon as that light went off,
he was gone.
He was off. So,
but to his credit, and he came here a number of years.
He did, yeah.
He was brilliant. He was wonderful, and the crowd loved it. But also, too, it was interesting. I think I got the impression that as he felt more comfortable in the tournament and understood that, yes, it's an exhibition, people are drinking, people are shouting.
Two courts.
Balls from court to court across, not just back over the net. He actually really warmed to it. And I think, I don't know, you'd know better, but it appeared like he really enjoyed himself. And each year he came back, one year he's running around with his boxer shorts on and whipped his strides off, and someone raided his bag, remember Michael Lodger, and put his goggles on, his swimming goggles, and took his credit card. And I think he really seemed to warm to it.
He loosened up. I think the perception is that he's so tight, uptight, and abrasive, and trying to actually shop the idea to him, which started with shopping it to his agent, and then obviously taking the liberty that I had played doubles with him, and and he was saying, "Oh, I suppose you want me to lower my fee because it's a mate's fee."
Right.
I said, "Of course, you help me, and now I'm helping. Teamwork here." And but trying to explain the two courts that we initially had, and that it does. There are distractions and he seemed game enough, but I think he just it was not in place. I think he is, a little concerned about things being in position, and so to see, as you say, the balls going everywhere and the interaction, it just took him, it rattled him. But he actually came back. He was a big supporter of the event here. I think he enjoyed that. Not just me, but Darren and Roger Rashid, Ali, the whole team, and it was something that he enjoyed, and he probably could loosen up a little more, and he enjoyed himself big time.
I think over a couple of years that he came, you could almost see the little smirk and smile come onto that face, because early on, remember one year, Lendl came here, and obviously that rivalry is world renowned, and I think it was one night it was raining and they were going to play for the first time here. It must have been the first time in years they would have come head to head. And you could see McEnroe was as keen to beat him as he would have been on the tour.
And Lendl was the one. We had shopped the idea to them because they had not played. It had been, almost could have been 2 decades since they had last been on the court with each other. And there was a loathing of McEnroe towards Ivan. Ivan was probably a little less, defensive and annoying to McEnroe. It was Ivan actually that was toey about. He was hoping the rain would actually come down a little more.
He didn't want to play.
Can we stop? Can you? And of course we had patrons sitting in the stands that are anticipating this great matchup, as TV were. So we, and John was he was waiting. He was ready to play and pounce. But I think we got them on after 45
because I think
minutes.
Ivan was saying, "Well, it's wet. I've got a sore ankle."
Yeah.
And I remember John was just steaming around the locker room, going, "I'm getting out there. I'm getting out there." And he got out there and he won. And I'm not joking. It was like he won Wimbledon. It was brilliant. The theatre of it was sensational. But he wasn't putting a show on. He was playing tennis.
Yeah. Having been beside him, obviously a first-hand look at the period of time we played together, which was just under 12 months. But there were moments that I think I played the support role, from the first time that we played together.
How did he pick you? Because I know you guys won LA, you won San Francisco, then you won the US Open a year later. How did you end up together? Because you would have been a young buck.
I was, and I played him twice in singles, in back-to-back tournaments, the Canadian Open, and I won. And I guess I picked up a bit of kind of like a respect from him. And in fact, he told me that, you look too much like my idol, Rod Laver.
That's a nice compliment.
I couldn't concentrate. I was like, okay, fine. The next tournament happened to be the US Open. The draw came out. We had to play against each other in the third round. And the media kind of jumped on it because who's this Australian kid that's beaten McEnroe and potentially going to play him again? And he repeated that, he reminds me too much of Rod Laver. As the press do, they would then come around and try to get some sound bites from me. And I said, well, I guess I'm looking pretty good because I haven't changed. I'm still looking like Rod Laver. I'm not dyeing my hair. Freckles aren't going. I'm not going to switch to my right hand. And so I ended up winning, back-to-back weeks. The next tournament was LA, and I was looking for I didn't have a partner that week. Wally Masur wasn't in the event that week. So I just went up to the tour manager, who was on a phone call and holding the phone like way away from his ear. So I just thought he was, ready to dial. And so I just went up and I said, hey, I'm Benji, I'm looking for a partner this week. Can you, sign me up? And he just kind of like, just 1 second. And he came back to the phone. He was like, okay, yes, Junior. Okay, I got it. By the way, that young kid from Australia that's beaten you the last 2 tournaments, he's just walked in and I saw him sign up for partner looking.
No.
Would he be appropriate? he took the phone out there because he could hear this bang, 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 bang in the phone. And I'm sitting there going, what are you doing, Benji? I'm like, no. Because I knew.
You cottoned on it was John on the phone.
It was McEnroe. And he goes, brings up, and he goes, okay, yep, I'll get back to you. And he goes, so do you want to play with him? I'm like, mate, what are you doing? No, I'm not good enough to play with him. But I had just beaten him twice.
So were you intimidated by John?
It's far easier to dislike your opponent and probably hate your opponent when they're up the other end, across the net.
Of course.
So, look, in that Borg-McEnroe matchup, I was always a Borg supporter.
You were a Borg man?
I couldn't stand McEnroe.
Right.
Even though he's left-handed and probably played similar to the way I should be playing, couldn't stand him. So
because of the antics or because of
all of
what?
it? The antics, the whole package just did not appeal to me. I perceived myself, I wanted to be stoic and ice cool, handle that pressure, not be reactive on the court.
You're on board.
Yeah. All of those assets that's who I wanted to emulate. So to play against him, I just shut all of that out and just, never looked at him, never really interacted with him.
Right.
So all of a sudden to, be put into the position where, well, do I not want to play him? Or I really should play with him, and because it's a great experience, and it really was taken more or less out of my hands because the tour manager then had to go and check with the tournament people about a wild card, and I eventually got a word that he had said yes, and I panicked. I just panicked. I put him on a pedestal. He's one of the all-time greats.
Absolutely.
And I just was like, the singles was different because he's up the other end.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he's going to be beside me. I have to live up to expectations, and it just, I was so I doubted. I just didn't think, no, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Very negative, which is, again, not my usual outlook.
But Woody, that's understandable, I think, because you're not just talking about a guy who was a great of the game. You're talking about someone that transcended the sport and essentially was a part of pop culture.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, and I remember reading his book, and he said we were playing at a time when it wasn't that we all wanted to be rock stars. He goes, rock stars wanted to be tennis stars.
Yeah.
In New York with Vitas Gerulaitis and all these sort of guys, and Andy Warhol having these parties. I mean, you're talking about a bloke who was probably one of the most iconic sports people, or one of the most iconic people in Western society, if that's not too dramatic.
Trendsetter in our sport.
Yeah.
I had seen him play doubles the previous year at a tournament in Europe. He and Peter Fleming had, or a couple of years before, I think it was, he and Peter Fleming had beat two Australians.
Yep.
And he came onto the court and they were up 6-love, 3-love, and he'd made 2 mistakes. And we were on the side of the court, I think it was with Darren Cahill and maybe Mark Kratzman, but we were counting the mistakes by McEnroe. To make 2 mistakes in that period, like 9 games against a formidable Australian duo, was just mind-blowing. So I'd had all of these ideas as far as he was as a doubles player. And of course, playing singles and doubles, it was all what I was trying to emulate.
Of course.
But the fact that I'm playing with him, total, it just blew my mind. And when he turned up the following day, the following day I had to play singles, and we had to play doubles later. I came out of the shower in the locker room and he rocked up and he saw me, but his eyes never deviated.
When you come out of the shower, so you kept them up?
Yeah. Well, even if he looked down, I was covering myself because I'd never felt so bare. He's walking in, he's just looking.
Yeah.
He came almost rubbing noses to me, and he pointed onto my chest and he said, "You think you're goddamn good enough to play doubles with me?"
Wow.
Covering myself again, I was like, yes. He said, "You better hold your end up on the court." turned and walked away. I just started sweating bullets, jumped back into the shower because I was like, I've got to cool down. That added all this, amplified my pressure that I was applying on myself. And when we got onto the court, I just was speechless. They introduced me as like they'd make on-court introductions. And Mark Woodforde, whatever, 20 plus years of age, and he's done this and that. I was thinking, it's not too bad. Yeah. Hopefully it's respectful.
ATP winner of Auckland
and two-time Adelaide International.
Great introduction.
And I don't know.
Because by then you hadn't had any doubles success.
I had not won a doubles.
You'd won singles tournaments only.
I think I'd made a doubles final. Yeah. So they rattled off my bio. I was like, okay. And then, and welcome, Los Angeles, John McEnroe, winner of... they didn't have to say your singles career, the doubles career. Yeah. I was like, oh no. That just, again, gutted me.
Insane? Were they just going crazy for him?
Yeah, the LA tournaments historically was played at the UCLA collegiate grounds. And so it's right there in like Beverly Hills. So there was a real Hollywood crowd. I mean, John was still married to Tatum O'Neal at the time. I had overheard that Madonna had wanted to come and see him play that night for our doubles. So I'm thinking, what? Like, I mean, who are these people?
Are you scanning the crowd looking for Madonna at any point?
Well, she didn't end up coming. I did. Right. The fact that she was intending to come, but then as we were going out, I think they'd come up to him and said, look, she's unable to come. So it was kind of, relief. Johnny Carson was right there in the front row, who was a big tennis fan. It was just like a Hollywood hype event. And for the first set, my coach had said, absorb, ask questions, let him talk, listen and learn. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't hit a ball over. And I was just so tight. We were unseated, playing a seeded pair, and I was collapsing mentally. I just was shutting down. And eventually, after we lost the first set, he did just lean over and nudge me and say, hey, you doing okay? And he kind of startled me, because he was trying to reach out. I said, no, I'm playing so badly. And I don't know what's going on. Pretty basic answer. But he knew what was going on. Yeah. He said, just breathe, take a deep breath, go on. So I did it. And he said, just shoulders, mate. He said, if we lose this match, I still think you're a good guy. He said, we might get the chance to play again. He said, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. Heck, you've beaten me twice now. He said, I know you can play. So he said, if we can just get one or two, just play it. Don't think we're going to win, but just let's see if we can hold serve here, get off to a good start. And that was like a magician had just, tapped me on the shoulders. I went out. I think I took a ball that was his, but I went across, flew across and put it away. The crowd, were kind of like, yeah, that's the way. And it just started, chest coming out, we ended up holding serve, broke serve, won the set, won the match, won the tournament. We were playing San Francisco the next week. And I'd already asked him if he would play, and he had said, we'll wait and see. So that's why I knew the result was really crucial. When we won the tournament, we shook hands and he said, you've just won yourself a gig for next week.
Wow.
Yes.
So you'd won singles tournaments before that, obviously, as we've talked about, but you win that alongside one of the absolute superstars. How are you feeling at that point? Was that such a significant moment for you?
Yeah, of course. I thought I was $1 million. I thought you feel like you made it in the sense that you're beside one of the all-time greats. You've just won a couple of. You've beaten him in singles, and so my singles ranking was going in the right direction. I just had won a doubles tournament for the first time.
Yeah.
So I feel like my career is the trajectory.
You're on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you remember, did you celebrate with him that night? Was there anything sort of significant that happened?
Not that night not that week at all, because he was with Tatum and they had a place, not in Beverly Hills, down in Malibu. So we didn't really socialize. We had a couple of hits together before the match.
Yeah.
And then the following week in San Fran, we won that tournament, but we didn't, again, he was staying with friends. There was someone playing for the 49ers that he was staying with, and I didn't know who. I still don't know who to this day, but he was late for the final because he'd been out partying the night before, unbeknownst to me. Like, I'm green as. I mean, so does. I'm just living the dream, and don't bugger this up. Was my mentality. Prolong it as much as possible. But I turned up. We'd agreed to practice at 1:00, just before the singles final. He never turned up at 1. He never turned up at 2. They were getting close to finishing the match, and I started to panic because I hadn't warmed up. So I'd never gone on for a match at that time, not having warmed up. But I didn't know where's Junior? Where is he? And again, the tournament.
And he's called Junior because of the name and his father.
Yeah, John McEnroe Jr.
Of course.
And John McEnroe
Just for those
Sr.
playing along at home that weren't aware, because his dad's John as well.
Yeah. So I'd asked the tournament manager, where's Junior? Is he? I haven't heard from him. He's not here. And so they quickly, started to phone around to locate him, and he right on the match point of the singles. And in those days, they kept it rolling. I mean, they quickly do a ceremony, and out comes the doubles. And I would say probably majority of that crowd there that day were not really interested in the singles. They were wanting to see John McEnroe play at Cow Palace in the doubles. And so, he rocked up. He looked like he'd had a big night. And he said, "Hey, how you doing, Woody?" I was like we're on. And he goes, "Yeah, let's go. Come on." He said, "You warmed up?" And he's like, kind of stretching type of loose. I'm like, "Really? That's the warm up?" He said, "Come on, we're seeing the ball well enough. We don't need to hit any." We just walked out. But I think, again, that probably activated all of my senses. Like, I've got to be on. I've got to help him.
Did you for one moment think, I might have to carry John McEnroe today?
Exactly. Can I do this? And so by then, we just had started to synchronize. So we won the tournament, and then so we it began this kind of next 6 months of playing irregular. It wasn't regular. I had hoped that it would be more. But those times were precious that I got to play with him. But it was just, I loved it. I learned a lot. I never would have achieved anything on the doubles court with Todd if I hadn't have had that time with McEnroe. I learned a tremendous amount just watching him, the way he behaved on the court, the way he handled playing singles and doubles. But it also created a bit of kind of back drama because he wasn't well liked by a lot of the Australian guys, like John Fitzgerald loathed him. And he had a huge beef with him. And that kind of then impacted my relationship with Fitzy. Fitzy was like, why are you playing with that asshole? You could be playing with Wally. I was like, well, I would play with Wally, but this is like, are you saying that you wouldn't knock this back? And John had said to me a few times, I feel if I walk into the locker room or the player lounge and you're sitting there with the Australian guys, and he said, I feel like, that I can't come up to you because I know Fitzy's there and I know that he doesn't, like me.
Oh, he was well aware then of that relationship.
Oh, very much, very much. And so it was difficult. We actually had to play Fitzy and Anders Yared. They were the team at the time. And but John usually had, mastered many of those on the doubles court. And I don't think Anders enjoyed playing against John either. John McEnroe, I mean.
Yes.
But we got them a couple of times, I think, in matches, and there was some tense times on the doubles court. McEnroe just had a way of knowing when to push the button to annoy players. He really just had it down to an art.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're up the other end, it annoys the heck out of you. So it annoyed Fitzy, annoyed Anders.
That was part of his makeup, though, wasn't it? As well as being a brilliant magician with a tennis racket, it was psychological warfare.
Yes, yeah, he knew. He was fully aware of it. That when to the appropriate time to maybe stall and maybe create a bit of drama. And look, Fitzy, to his credit, wasn't going to back down, and a lot of players felt like that John needed to be pulled into line, that it was unfair. The tennis officials were quite lenient at times with him, but we did play them at this one match in Paris, and at the end, John McEnroe and I lost to Fitzy and to Yared.
Geez, that would have been a sweet win for Fitzy, wouldn't it?
It would have. It was like winning a Wimbledon. As you know, look, whenever you beat McEnroe, it's huge. But we went up to shake hands, and McEnroe said to Fitzy, "I hope that we can square things away by going out for a beer tonight." And Fitzy just kind of like stunned. He then grabbed Anders' hand and goes, "And I hope that we can, come for a beer too." And they were just like, "What?" I shook hands. I'm like, "Yeah, dinner." And the four of us went out for a meal that night, and I think it allowed Fitzy and Anders to see just a different side of him. Yeah. Again, when you're up the other end, you can hate the person as much as you want.
Yeah.
But to socialise, which I don't think they really had that often, but we had a great night. We had a few beers, and when the bill came, I guess the joke was, well, are we splitting this or,
Well, first question was going to be who picked up the tab. So I'm glad you got us there.
Yeah, so we were, again, I'm sitting back because I'm the rookie of all of this. And so, Matt pulled out his wallet and threw a green American Express card down. And that just threw Fitzy and Yared. They're like, what? They threw out like a platinum and a gold card, and I just had a green card, so that went on. But they were like, "What? Why do you have a green card?" They thought that was a symbol of his. He should be having a platinum card, or a black card.
So you've got your stock standard American Express.
Absolutely. So then it got on to, but what? Why? And what are you worth? And how much have you won in your career? And all these questions that probably you all, I guess at some stage, we wonder about the elite.
Of course.
What is their earning power off the court? What's the biggest check? And so it was like this little interview that had taken place by Fitzy and Anders, but it helped steady and calm the relationship between John that he probably had with a number. It wasn't just those two that he'd had with some others, but at least. What I was thrilled with, that it's the animosity that Fitzy, kind of displayed towards me because I'm playing with, someone that he didn't appreciate. So look, it was an interesting ride playing with him, but without a doubt, I just wouldn't have achieved, the things I did with Todd, and he helped me choose Todd without ever saying play with Todd Woodbridge.
You tell us about that, because obviously, because you and John then went on after that to win a Grand Slam, your first Grand Slam, which we can't just brush over. So forgive me, but when you win a US Open in his hometown, and he is New York.
Yeah.
That is quintessentially, he is a New Yorker. And he wins US Open. That must be just crazy.
And then we probably got to spend a bit more time together. He'd lost early in the singles that year. And so I, went to where he grew up, and we'd practice over there in near Greenwich.
Queensway.
guys, I'll go or name drop because I think it is all relative. But Chevy Chase was a big tennis fan and a big John McEnroe fan.
Right.
So we'd be going to practice, and it was like this guy was tracking us, and you had to be aware that there were some crazed fans as well, and so you were just aware of who was around you. But this guy and he looked familiar, and I kept thinking, who the hell is this? And he'd kind of acknowledge me, but like after the second day, he was back there again, and but he was invited onto the court, and I'm like, okay, they must know each other pretty well, and then he started saying, Chevy this, Chevy that, and it's gone like ding. I mean, I wasn't expecting a Chevy Chase to be following us and pick up balls, and he's there, and with that goofy grin that he has, and, he's wearing a hat and glasses, and he's but he's being a bull kid and improvising, and it gets into the chair, and he's calling rallies like he's commentating. I mean, just as you would expect of Chevy Chase, but it was he took control that week. It was his hometown, his turf. After winning the final, we went out and celebrated. That was probably the first time that we went out together.
Yeah. Can you remember what you did?
Oh, heck yeah. It is seared.
Really? What happened? Yeah. What did you do after you won the US Open, your first Grand Slam title?
I mean, he had said already at the presentation ceremony, you're available tonight, right, to celebrate. I was like, yeah, heck yeah. And interestingly, at the presentation ceremony, the president of the USTA got up, and it was packed. And in those days, it was Super Saturday at the US Open. So it was always the doubles final went first, followed by the two ladies semi-finals. But because John was in the final, the USTA demanded that we get prime time. So we were moved in between the two women's semi-finals. Middle of the day, prime times, I think CBS audience.
Yeah.
It was packed, jam-packed. But the USTA president said, John, something like, this is proof that you are the best doubles player in the planet, and by winning the title, congratulations, here's the trophy. Like, I'm standing there going like,
right. Who's a redheaded Aussie from Marion High School? What's he doing?
So, John got the microphone and he said, thank you very much, David, Mark, and I appreciate those words. But doubles is about two of you. It's teamwork. And I've got this young kid from Australia, just picked me up and, elevated me like, come on over, Woody, and get your hands around the trophy. You deserve this as much as I did. And so, you just thrust the trophy above your head. And then knowing that I'm going out with he and Tatum and a Mexican restaurant, and I mean, I was single at the time, so he said, "You're going to bring someone with you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I called up a gal that I was seeing and said, "So you're coming out tonight?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course." She knew the restaurant, and I mean, it was his haunt of his that he went to, and just had a brilliant time. I had another crew that I wanted to go out with, so went away for like an hour to celebrate with some Australians that I knew. And then we met at some club. I went back, John said, Tatum and I are going to whatever club, and, so when you come back, just go to the front of the line, tell them who you are, I'll take care of it. And I mean, it was like the early hours that just stayed and just kind of hung with them, which, it's, I mean, pretty memorable. But not where it was, you're catatonic and, crawling out. But I mean, look, I was on top of the world for the next weeks, months.
You've won your first Grand Slam title.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal story. What a phenomenal experience to be able to do that with one of the all-time greats.
And we went to a Mexican restaurant, and I hadn't actually had Mexican at that stage. And when I said that, she said, "Oh, we're going to Rosa Mexicana." I said, "Oh, so what? Where's that?" And she met Mexican on 1st and 58th.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I said, I've never had Mexican. Well, she just fell to the side laughing. She thought, I was like, I said, but Tatum, I'm from Australia. We don't really do Mexican restaurants that many times. And she said, but you've never had a margarita? And I said, so what's a margarita? I'd never had one either. I'd never had Mexican until that day, that night.
Wow.
But every time she asked me a question and I was answering, she'd fall onto the ground just like laughing, like full on laughter, like, oh my God, John, we're going to have so much fun tonight. It was like, we get to have fun with this guy who's never had Mexican. So they just applied the drinks and
brilliant.
So
what a wonderful life experience. I want to just jump while we're talking about some greats, because we haven't even got into a lot of, you and particularly you and what you achieved and so much more. But your first Wimbledon title, speaking of greats, was alongside Martina Navratilova in the mixed. I mean, you played with McEnroe. A couple of years later, you're playing with Martina Navratilova. Like, what are you doing? You've just playing these amazing sliding doors moments with these stars.
And both opportunities. I was playing doubles with Wally Masur. It was coming to an end, and that's when I hooked up with McEnroe. And the same with the mixed doubles. I was enjoying playing with Nicole Provis.
Of course, you had great success.
Had already had success. I lusted after Nicole. That was probably primarily why I had asked her to play. Because
lusted as in?
I was enamored with her. I just, I thought she was great. I thought she looked superb.
Right.
And the way we combined well. We knew each other for a couple of years, so it was always fun playing with her. Even if you lose, I'm playing with Nicole Provis at the time.
Back then,
but when I got a call from Martina, I didn't believe it was her, and so I was like, had 2 or 3 times saying, okay, so get the hell out of here. Who is this? I thought it was one of, someone else putting a voice
setting
on.
up.
Yeah.
One of your mates playing a gag.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, bullshit. That's Martina who? Martina Navratilova. Yeah, right. So who is this? You're like, Martina, I've won, like 25 Wimbledon titles, and I'd like to play with you to win one more. I'm like, yeah, okay, pull the other one. Who the hell is this? No, Mark, I got the number from Neil Fraser. I was like, oh my goodness, Martina. I'd never spoken to her before. So she just said, I think we could win Wimbledon together. And I said, okay, well, that's good enough for me. But I said, I'm playing with Nicole Provis. And she said, well, do you think that Nicole would allow you to play with me for a period of time? And I said, yeah, well, I'll sure as hell ask. And Nicole didn't take it too well when I had spoken to her. And
well, it's like you're cheating on your tennis wife.
Yeah, right. It was. I was trying to tread lightly and did not tread lightly enough, and so it was a very I understand, but again, I'm looking at it from I guess a selfish, personal. Perspective that I had an opportunity to play with one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
I didn't mess it up with McEnroe. I had, was boosted from it. And I thought that I could, wanted to just have that opportunity. So I did my best to try and soften it with Nicole, but it just, there was probably about a year where it was, not too much contact, but I got to play with Marty and I certainly got a first-hand look as why she's probably the greatest female player that has played our sport.
And you won.
And we won. First match we played on an outside court, which was a big court for me, but it was a downgrade for her, and she was livid. We played on court 2. And as I said, I have hardly played on court 2. I had never played on centre until at that stage. So she was going out. She felt that was putting her in danger. And I was feeling it was elevating me.
Of course.
Like going out there. And she really spent a good part of the match worried about how close the fans were to her, compared to centre or court one.
Worried that something may happen or someone might.
Yep, something
Come on.
that could jump onto the court, and,
Wow.
or just that they could engage. I mean, we're literally a few feet away from the first row, and she said like kind of talking, or they could throw out comments, and kind of she didn't have her blinkers on all the time. So I felt like the first match, I almost like nursed her through the experience of playing on court two. Apart from the fact it's called the graveyard court at Wimbledon, and so she thought that was going to put an end to what she had hoped, another title. But we got through it, and then I think from that time on, we played predominantly on centre, and she showed. And in those days, you had to bow to the royal box when you walked on. But she explained everything from the moment that we assembled at courtside to, how just a procedure that was in place, because she had done that so often. And the bounces on the court, and where the deviations are, and where the wind comes and the sun bounces off that bench over there. It was just so complex.
She gave you your Wimbledon education.
She totally did break my Wimbledon.
Popped your Wimbledon cherry, can we say that?
Totally. She, it was before Todd and I were still going in the doubles. But we, and again, the experience of playing with her on the court before I'd ever done that with Todd. So when we got out there, Todd was like, so what did she say? What how did you do it? And why has she won that much? So it was just this, passing on the information that had come from one of the all-time greats.
So you talked about how John helped you become the player you became. Particularly, I imagine at Wimbledon, Martina helped you win 6 Wimbledon doubles titles beyond what you won with her in the mixed.
And playing with someone that, again, played every discipline, singles, doubles and mixed. So it just provided this insight of valuable information of, how you handle, how you can handle it. I mean, they were two, players that won a whole lot in all of those discipplines. So it was, you had the demands physically and mentally, and look, there's nothing like winning. And it was something that I wanted to do more of. And being, having a target on your back. I mean, everyone, again, against Martina, even on the mixed doubles court, graded how well they were doing by whether they could take on Navratilova. But the day of the final, the first game, I went down 40 love on my serve, and just through nerves. But she came back and she kind of gave me a tap on my butt and said, "Come on, we've got to hold serve here." And again, it was like, okay, switch, because someone
This is
had
like
delivered.
the John experience the first time you played in LA?
I mean, I was just like probably holding my breath, or and that his shoulders are up and I'm trying to serve, so it's sitting there like a duck. They've just pummeled 3 returns past me. But it was just the little tap and the words, and it was like, okay, bang, we held serve, and it's almost like, I mean, obviously we had to play the match, but that first game won the match for us, because I was free. She just, kind of, she was the leader, but had the victory, and we played a few more times together, and it was great fun playing with her, and just learning. I mean, she's a wealth of information, probably a lot more open than what McEnroe was. I think John, you had to ask most of the time, but for Martina, she supplied it. So look, I'm blessed with these great partnerships with John, then Martina, and
Todd,
and then this great partnership with Todd that lasted a heck of a lot longer than what the brief interludes with these two all-time greats.
Woody, time is of the essence because I know you've got to get out there and watch this final. Mate, I absolutely love this. I feel like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to talk about, so we have to do a part 2.
There is a part B in the works.
Absolutely, but I think it's fascinating, your journey. You're an absolute tennis icon, not just in this town, but in Australia. It's been a pleasure, and I'm very grateful that you've given me many opportunities over the past 10, 12 years to get to know tennis even better. So, mate, thank you so much for opening up, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Otis.
Thank you, my friend.
Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Now, if you love what you just heard, please subscribe to the Soda Room podcast. You could write a review. You can watch the show on YouTube and share it with your buddies. And if you'd like to get in touch with the show, drop us a line, info@thesodaroom.com. Catch you soon.